I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. At the end of 7 days, their biology, their blood values look like they've been meditating for years. Those meditators that were novice meditators that look like advanced meditators are upregulating thousands of genes in their biology to suggest that they're living in a whole new life.
Check one, check.
And that is where you keep referencing the term advanced meditator, because you don't say normal meditators.
Well, what I will say is it's kind of funny. When I use that term, I can only use that term because many people that come to our week-long retreats, Stephen, they're novices. They've never really meditated before. Their spouse or their boyfriend or girlfriend brought them, or their coworker or their friend. They're just kind of like, whatever. I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. The novice meditator who just kind of practices a little bit, that goes through the immersive experience, at the end of 7 days, their brains look like advanced meditators. At the end of 7 days, their biology, their blood values look like they've been meditating for years. In other words, at the end of 7 days, those meditators that were novice meditators that look like advanced meditators are upregulating thousands of genes in their biology to suggest that they're living in a whole new life, a whole new environment, and they're in a ballroom. And there's nothing very stimulating about a ballroom. So whatever they're doing inside of themselves, somehow is causing dramatic changes. Now, we looked at a group of people. We looked at their genotype, and genes make proteins. And your gene expression is different than mine, different than every single person. So everybody has their own unique genotype, which means they all make their own individual proteins. At the end of 7 days, when we looked at those meditators, at the end of 7 days, almost 80% of the population was making the same genes and the same proteins. They were signaling the same genes and making the same proteins. What does that mean? That means when people behaved in the same way, there's an emergent consciousness that comes forth that's reflected in people's biology, the flock, the herd, the tribe. Everybody's evolving together biologically.
At these retreats, these 7-day retreats, one of the things I was pretty shocked by was the amount of time people spend meditating.
Yeah.
How long do people spend meditating, and why is that important?
Our events are a spiritual rave. That's the best way I can describe it. We start at 6 a.m. and we finish at 7 or 8 at night, and the days go by extremely fast. There's standing and walking meditations. We do sometimes 4 or 5 of them, sometimes 6 at a week-long event. Why? Because you got to embody it. You got to get really good at doing it with your eyes open. We do laying down meditations after we get people to a certain point where I know they're not going to fall asleep when they lay down. And then we do some big meditations that are a little bit more longer, but people are up and down the whole entire time. None of the meditations will ever be done without knowledge beforehand, because knowledge is the precursor to the experience. So it's an immersive experience, yet turns out to be about 35 hours of meditation when it's all said and done. But you ask anybody who does a week-long event, they'll say, I can't wait to get back into my life and start my practice, because what I was doing when I got here was nothing like I'm doing now, right? So now they're more equipped, and really they're kind of in a different body. They're walking back into a new life, and they're not on the same line of time any longer.
That's the experience that I can profess to be true in my own relationship in life, because my partner came back from the meditations. She came back from the week in Miami where she was doing the walking meditations down the beach and so on, and it didn't stop there. In fact, that was really the start of her journey, because every morning now she has this new routine where she meditates in the morning, and No one's telling her to do that, but clearly the benefit has been so great for her that she's continued the practice, and she does it every day. I'm so amazed by it, because it takes a certain, I was going to say the word discipline, but it's not discipline, because if you're so clear on the benefit of an action, you don't necessarily need like discipline. It's just clearly done so much for her that she's continued to do it thereafter. And it's funny because obviously she came back from it. I was supposed to attend, I had a visa issue. She came back from it and told me about the process, and her recounting it, like objectively, you go, God, that must have been hard and uncomfortable, or that must have been whatever. But her experience was very much the opposite. It was joyous, it was filling. She came back so unbelievably obsessed with this new set of sort of systems and information that could better her life. And it's really profound. Like, you can hear it on a podcast, but then when you kind of witness it in someone you know well and love, it's incredibly persuasive.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want. I want people to walk out into their life and not say, you need to shorten the refractory period of your emotional responses, you need to forgive, and you need to get your brain or heart coherent. I don't want anybody in my work to do that. I want them to walk out into the world and be the example. So much so that people go, what's up with you? You're different. Like, you seem different. What is it? And that's when I think the real conversation starts. So it's instrumental. When it becomes instrumental and you apply it to your life and it's working for you, it's not a have to. As I said, it's something that you really enjoy doing. And wow, what a crazy sovereign idea that you could actually make yourself happy. What a crazy idea when you hit those gamma moments where you feel a level of love that you have never felt in your entire life by connecting to source, which is pure love. And you stop looking for it outside of you. You start realizing it's within you. That's a big moment, right? Because then you won't need anybody or anything. That's freedom. That's unconditional love, right?
And you'll get out of want. Use that term a few times.
Yeah. I mean, like want. Like we've been trained to create based on lack. That's what we do in three-dimensional reality. In three-dimensional reality, you see someone that has a sports car and you don't have one, and you like that sports car. All of a sudden, you want that sports car. Your brain starts creating based on lack of not having it. You see someone in a scarf and you like that scarf, and next thing you know, you're wearing that scarf. Your brain imagines you having it, right? But the way we get it in three-dimensional reality is we have to do something. This is the plane of demonstration. So then when we finally get the scarf and we finally get the car, the experience of getting the car produces the emotion that takes away the lack or separation of not having it. So some people spend their whole life in lack, waiting for the thing to come around to take away the feeling of lack or separation, right? My message is not that. My message is actually to create in a different way, in such a way that you feel like it has already happened. Now, the power behind all of that is that the person now who's in that state where they're feeling like the event has already happened, they no longer want it because they're feeling the emotion of it. How could they wouldn't be looking for it. You only look for it when you experience lack. If you feel like it's already happened, you're no longer separate from it. And we cannot attract anything in our life we feel separate from. And so feeling that emotion somehow starts to draw things to us. And now we're not having to do anything. And things are starting to come to us. That's the synchronicities, that's the coincidences, that's the opportunities. We're not doing anything, they're coming to us. Now that's, so you can't, when you create from that quantum field instead of from matter, you can't create from lack because the thought of your wealth in the quantum produces the feeling of abundance. The thought of your wealth in three-dimensional reality for many people produces the lack of not having it. So in the quantum, there's a whole different set of rules, and it's not something that you learn right away. You learn from trial and error. So then when we truly create in the act of creation, and we are creating from the field instead of from matter, to shorten the distance between the thought of what we want and experience of having it. The only way that we can do that is we can't create from lack. So in the creative process, we create from wholeness.
My concern when I hear that is, well, Joe, if I no longer live in a state of want, am I going to have the motivation to get up and go? Because I look at my life and go, well, it was your creating from a place of lack that motivated you to start a podcast and to start run businesses and do all of these things and get a car and whatever else.
No, I'm not disputing that. I think You do that for a while. You do that for a while. And I always tell people, I don't care what you want to create. I just want you to get really good at creating. I don't care what it is. Well, I don't care what it is. Cars, whatever it is. Vacations, houses, I don't care. Just get good at creating. But sooner or later, that the novelty will wear off on all of that, and you'll want to know that on some level there's more. So we always desire things. We always want things. But when we're in the creative process, we cannot create from the lack of not having it. We have to create from the feeling of having it, right? And so in the quantum, you got to feel it to experience it.